Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final day of the CanAmerica Symposium. We're going to do a slightly different type of breakfast presentation today. We're going to talk about what makes a great leader, why it's important in perfusion. And a fabulous man to do this is going to be Bharat Datt. You heard him with the NRP talks. He can give very construct and a balanced point of view about things that are quite emotive. And leadership is very emotive. It can bring us together. It can cause toxicity if it's not done right. So without further ado, Bharat, please come up and join us. Thank you.
Just want to thank Epic Healthcare and Richard for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on leadership. And to all of you for being here on the last day of the conference at 8 o'clock in the morning. You know, one of the things about leadership I learned is most of it is learned. There's maybe one trait which you're born with or you learn in childhood, but other than that, leadership is a learned trait, and you learn how to be a good leader. You're not born being a good leader. So I wanted to start with our objectives here, and one of the things I wanted to share is, yeah, it's good to be a good clinician when you're a leader, but it's a double-edged sword. Because yes, you need to be a resource for your team if you're a good clinician as a perfusionist. But you also want to make sure you don't get full of yourself and start thinking you're God and you know everything, because you don't. As a leader, you have to understand that you are limited. And what are you limited by? You're limited by the people who surround you. So hire people smarter than you. Hire people who can bridge the gap you're not good at. And get every brain in the game, is what we call it. Every brain in the game. So have team meetings as perfusionists. Talk candidly about not just your wins and successes, but also about your problems, because they're more important than your successes. And yeah, you celebrate your success, but you also candidly talk about your problems, because your problems impact patient safety and quality. So I'm going to start with a corny quote. It is a corny quote. Connect before you correct. And it's important because it brings into discussion how important it is to be a leader and a follower. So when you're on a team, you're a follower, someone's a leader, right? But those relationships are symbiotic. The same characters which make you a good leader also make you a good follower. And so you have to understand what we're talking about today is not just being a good leader, but also being a good team member. And so when you, say, take up a new job and you come to Fort Myers, for example, you don't want to start out with, hey, this is how we did it in Chicago. Connect before you correct, right? Form relationships, earn respect from your peers and your surgeons and anesthesia, and then start trying to change stuff. Talk about what you think could be done better. One of the things I told my team is, look, don't come to me with just problems. Because if you come to me with problems, it's a complaint. Come to me with a problem and some solutions. And we're going to listen to you, because my idea is not always the best idea. The best idea wins. So I want to introduce one of my mentors in leadership. Jack Welch was a pioneer. He passed away a couple of years ago. He turned around General Electric from a $24 billion valuation in the 80s to a $75 billion valuation. And here's him talking about what a good leader should be.
What is the role of a leader? Well, the first one clearly is to be the chief meeting officer. To let everyone in the place know where you're going, why you're going there, and most importantly, what's in it for them to get there with you. People like to talk about where they're going, why they're going there, but they don't. They always leave out the third thing. When you come into a new job and you say, we want to change, change is great, we got to do it. You forget people hate change. You got to explain what's in it for them to change with you. So be the chief meaning officer and give meaning to every one of those people that are out there doing that job so that they understand why you're going where you're going. Yeah, and they know what's in it for them. Better job, more pay, more flexibility, maybe nothing if you can't say nothing. But you gotta understand that's one of them. Another part of a job, your job is to not give all these directives and not be the person getting rid of the clutter. Getting rid of clutter is a huge deal. You can't all of a sudden have bureaucracy. Let's go here, let's go there, then have 20 rules to stop the employees from getting there. You've got to break down all those little silos that occur, all those little bureaucrats who are checking the boxes in some layers, slowing you down. You've got to be the person we always use this analogy of curling. You see it every 4 years in the Olympics with the broom out in front of the thing. You got to be brooming away the stuff that's in the way. You've got to be the chief broomer out there to get rid of things so people can act and do things. You've got to have, if you want to be, in my experience, and I've looked at thousands of managers in my lifetime, you've got to have a generosity gene. It's got to be in your body. You got to love to see people promoted. You can't have a jealous vein where you can't, oh, Joe got promoted and I should have got that job, or Mary got this and Pete should have got it, or whatever. You got to enjoy people's success. You got to love people's success. You got to get in their skin and really be excited as hell for them. You got to love to give raises. You got to be turned on giving bonuses. It's got to make you feel great. And not, geez, I gave him a bonus and I didn't get one that big. None of those feelings. You got to just get over them. And if I look at all the leaders I've seen, the best ones I've seen have this generosity gene. Ask yourself, do you have it? Or do you have a little small gene in there that's killing you and give raises, killing you to see other successes and jealous in your body? You can't have it. Brush it out, clean it out. And then you go to work every day, finally, to really have fun. Are your people having fun? Find all kinds of ways to win. There are small victories all the time and celebrate every one of them. We found a way to bring a keg in on everything. Find a way to make little victories big victories. And if you get a lot of little victories, you'll get a big victory when you add them all together. But think of the job that way. Work is fun. And your job is to make it fun if you're a leader. Don't be some grinding horse's ass. If you're a bore, slap yourself. Think of the excitement and fun you can have in your job. Make it fun. Be the chief fun officer. So in my view, you've got a huge responsibility, most of you. God gave you a job where you are responsible for people's lives. It's a big deal. You got families you're responsible for. Make it a big success for them. You got one of the luxuries of life to impact people's lives. Grab it, squeeze it, and take advantage of it.
So my takeaway there is leadership is not about the leader. It's about everybody else. The moment you acknowledge that and understand that, you become a good leader. You understand it's not about you. It's about your people, your organization. And don't be in it for applause, because you ain't getting it. No one's going to come back and pat you on the back and say, Bharat, you're a great leader. The ex-president found that pretty quickly, right? You're there for other people. You're there for your team's success, for your organization's success. So work towards that. And like Jack said, thank them for their hard work. Give them credit. Don't take it away. Give them credit when they do something good. Give them as much raises as you can. Give them as much bonuses as you can, because that is your job as a leader. Say thank you in the morning when you see someone do a really hard case in the operating room. That is your job, to motivate people, to make them happy. Get them some lunch, get them some coffee. Sit down with them in team meetings and explain why you want change management. That's what I did. I'm a big guy for optimizing blood management, and I changed circuits and pumps here and there, everywhere. But I sat down with my team and explained why we're going to do it. The basic idea of it is to up the quality and safety of our patients, at the same time save money. Why am I trying to save money? Because I want to give you a raise, and that's how we do it. That's how we do it. Now, before I get into the meat of my presentation, I'm going to talk about something which is really critical, not only just in our jobs, but in life. And what does the audience think that skill is? Can someone tell me? It's not a trick question. You can be wrong. A really critical skill in life and at work. Thank you. Who said that? An applause for the gentleman right there. Communication. It is so important. It is so important. So let's talk about communication.
What is the role?
Not sure what I did there. Yeah. I'm having some trouble with my cursor here. So when you are in a team and you're the team leader, what do you think about? You think about people from different generations, right? I'm a Gen Xer. I have Gen Ys and Gen Zs on my team. They all communicate differently, right? Because I'm a Gen Xer, and if you're a baby boomer, for example, you're not very technically savvy. So you're not gonna, your first line of defense is not the email or a text. I probably, if I have a problem and I wanted to solve it, I'm just gonna walk over to an office and talk to somebody, right? Younger folk are not that comfortable with that. They'd rather send you a text. And don't get me wrong, email is a good modality, especially when you want to record something, for posterity. So it's a good thing, but it's not always the best form of communication. So as a team leader, you got to understand who's on your team. Are they Gen Xers? Are they Gen Ys? Are they Gen Zs? How do they respond to communication? If they're good at texting, which they usually are, social media, utilize that, right? But also coach them, because sometimes it's not great to have to send an email if you had to, right? Don't send an email to send another email to send another email, right? Don't have a meeting without an agenda. Don't have the next meeting without reaching at least one goal in the last meeting, because then it becomes a meeting for the meeting. So as a leader, that's your job. You want to make sure don't have unproductive meetings. And I can tell you, as a leader, 90% of my meetings were unproductive. The 10% which were productive were one-on-one meetings. What does that tell you? That tells you we probably didn't need 90% of the meetings, right? So those things are important. Like Jack said, make work fun. It's not fun sitting in a meeting which is not productive. and nothing comes off that meeting. And you're back in a month for the same meeting with the same guys, and you still haven't achieved anything. So what do? You make sure you don't have those meetings. You make sure you have an agenda. You make sure you have finite goals in that agenda. And you make sure you reach one of those goals before you have the next meeting. So you can talk about why, if you had 5 goals and you reached 1 goal, why we didn't reach the 4th goal. And who has a better idea than we already did. And that's what meetings are for, right? So communication is really important. And I'm running out of ideas before these guys start telling me what's happening here. Well, this was supposed to be my hook video, so there goes the hook. That's the other thing you want to learn as a leader. So some of the things I learned, the best thing I did, and I will tell this audience here, the best thing I did in my life is to get my MBA, because I learned a lot from my professors in my MBA, real world knowledge, something we are expected, to automatically have in healthcare. People think you don't need to learn how to send an email. You don't need to learn how to anchor a conference call. You don't need how to anchor a meeting. But these are skills. There is science and art behind all that. And that's what I will tell you folks. If you get a chance to do your MBA, get it done. Because you're going to learn so much outside of healthcare. Because you got to remember, healthcare is all about business and finance. You're going to be dealing with CFOs and COOs and CEOs. You need to know how to deal with these guys, how to walk the talk, right? And the only way you're going to get that done is if you get your MBA. So my MBA taught me one of the best papers I did was business communication. And business communication taught me how to write an email, how to anchor a conference call, how to tell the butthead to shut up on the conference call who doesn't shut up, right? That's important, because otherwise the conference call just goes away. You don't achieve what you wanted to achieve. So it's important. Communication skills is very important. And my title says voice, dignity, and soft skills. And that's the anchor point of Jack's leadership agenda and culture. What is voice? Voice means your voice. If you're on a team and I'm your team leader and you're on my team, you got to have a voice. This is not the day and age in 2024 where I come in and say, this is Bharat and this is what we're going to do today morning. That doesn't work. No. You sit down in the room and say, gentlemen, ladies, we're going to have a team meeting. What are we doing? How do you want your scheduling? Mary, you want to do the call schedule? Go for it. Just make sure you ask me when my meetings are, but do the call scheduling. Who's going to be on call? Oh, I'm the leader. I became the leader for the better quality of life, so I'm only going to do 10% of the call. That will not work with perfusionists. You will lose all credibility. You will lose complete credibility. You can't do that. You have to be right up in the front, fighting with your folks, doing all the work, taking call, taking equal call with everybody. You don't have to take more, sometimes more call if need be, but equal call, because that's what will give you credibility. Lead from the front. As far as staffing, I don't have to do the staffing. I want to do the staffing which you want to do. I want your life to be comfortable. Why? Why would I want to do that as a leader? Why would I want it to be comfortable? Because I don't want you to leave. There's a lot of money, the last line. Well, it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, you're just going to hear me talk. There aren't going to be any slides today, which is fine. My talk was all movies because I wanted to show you what my mentors taught me. It's not about me, it's about what my mentors taught me. And that's important for the young folk here and for the older folk here. It's important to mentor your younger folk, because they one day are going to be leaders and they're going to see what you do. So, like I said, the leader is not about you, it's about your team. So, give them voice, have team meetings. One of the things I've learned is a lot of teams don't have team meetings. I know you're busy, I know you do 2,000 cases a year, but make time to have a meeting at least once a month. And when you sit down in that meeting, give your team a voice. Let them say that team meeting is a safe space. Whatever they say is protected. There should be no repercussions for someone for speaking their mind. And that's what Jack told me. It's about authenticity. Authenticity is important. We learn about truth early in the age. You don't lie. All religions tell you that. Don't lie. Well, in the corporate world, we call it authenticity. I've worked with some institutions where the culture is to be nice. Don't be nice. You know why? Because some positive conflict is good for you. Be kind. Be kind to each other. Be kind to yourself as a professional. But don't be nice by hiding things which need to be sorted out, because all you're doing is kicking it down the road. You need to have a heart-to-heart talk about how you're going to fix these problems. And that's why when you hit on the team, working. So how many times have you actually seen an email chain like that? Right? So many times. Well, don't do it. Don't be a horse's ass, like Jack says. Get these things taken care of. That's your job, to be the scrubber in that game, in curling. You can't tell people, hey, I want you to optimize blood management. But you can't talk to the manager of blood bank. I talk to the manager of blood bank. You can't do that. You can't want something and then, like he said, initiate 5 bureaucratic rules to prevent that person's success. No, your job is to initiate and complete your team's success. So give them voice in a team meeting. It's really important to give them voice. So this is something which I think we are born with, is integrity. Integrity is something hard to learn.
The leader sets the tone. Yeah. And so when we say we demand that everyone in our company be honest and tell the truth, right? Yeah. Seems simple enough, and people write those values on the walls of their companies, right? Honesty, right? There it is for all to see, visions and values, And the point I was trying to make is if the phone rings and your secretary answers and says, David's on the phone, and you say, tell him I'm not here. That's a lie. That is a patent lie. And what we've now done is we've told our staff that when it suits us, it's okay to tell these little lies. Mm-hmm. So in an organization like that, it should come as no shock when people are lying in other parts of the company for self-interest, because that tone was set by the leader. So you can say, I'll call him back. You can say, I don't want to talk to him right now. But when you say, tell him I'm not here when clearly you are, then that leader says that in our organization, lying is acceptable. That's what that is. So writing on the wall means nothing. The behavior that we model absolutely matters. It's like parents today telling their kids to get off their cell phones, and then it's the father or the mother that is sitting at dinner on the cell phone.
So integrity is hard to come by, especially in today's world, but you can lose it in a second. And for you to have credibility with your team and your peers, you need to have that integrity. So don't do things which will dissolve your integrity, because once it's gone, it's gone. You can't build it again. I was talking about voice, so I'll let Jack tell you what the voice is about. Is this corrupt again? Can't see the start button. Anyway, let's move on. from voice, because we talked about giving your people voice, to dignity, which is the second pillar of my leadership talk. And dignity is about your folk, giving them dignity. Is it working? Dignity is about treating your team with compassion, treating your team well, all right? Never, ever berate your team in front of 5 other people. You never do that. I had a leader in my past life who did exactly that, who would come into the operating room, see someone make a mistake, and loudly start talking about how, when he would have been there, it would have never happened. Don't do that. Do not do that. Even if you need to fire somebody, do that with dignity. Give him a chance. And we're talking about evals and evaluation, and we'll talk about 20-70-10 rule, the differentiation of how you mentor your teammates. But voice and dignity are the 2 important pillars of leadership. You have to give your team voice, and you have to give your team dignity. Because if you're not doing that, you're a manager, you're not a leader. What's happening here? You got it fixed? All right, you got it fixed. The reason I'm showing you this video is because I want you guys to know that I'm not reinventing the wheel. This is not about me. I'm not the big guy here. This is established principles of leadership, at least in 2024. Yes, go for it.
You want to get every voice in your organization coming at you with ideas. You don't want just their hands. You want their brains. And so giving voice says anybody's idea counts, not the number of stripes on your shoulder, just the quality of your ideas. And we want them all the time. We want them from the mailroom to the office down the hall from the CEO. And we want everybody to feel they can find a better way every day. And if you get that feeling of finding a better way every day and give voice to an organization, every person in the room has got a better way of doing something. And if you get them coming to work every day thinking, how do I improve? How do I do it better? And their voice is then rewarded with compensation, with parties, with other things for great ideas. You then have a dynamic organization where ideas are constantly bubbling up.
So the other thing I want to talk about is authenticity. We heard Gabriella's talk yesterday, and I just want to say something about authenticity. We live in the world of social media, right? We are professionals, we are perfusionists. We encounter a lot of stress in the operating room. We have high key players, in the operating room, the cardiac surgeon, the cardiac anesthesiologist. And these are big personalities. And so there's a lot of stress, right? But I think we make it more stressful when we try to be what we are not. And that's what social media teaches us. It tries to teach us to try to be what we are not. Get comfortable with your own skin, because that is a lot less stressful for you. Think about self-care, that's important. But let's hear Jack talking about authenticity and how important it is in leadership.
What's different about our management philosophy? What's different about this MBA? It's really people driven. It's really about letting people be as big as they can become. It's about authenticity. It's about being yourself. It's about being yourself around a set of values in a setting. And when you let people understand the culture and you let them be themselves in that culture, you see them grow and win.
So that authenticity is very important. Never lie to your team. Never be disingenuous. Also, don't promise the world if you can't deliver. So if someone wants a raise, you can say, I'm going to try, right? You don't have to say, you'll get it, or you're never going to get it. You know, try, because that's your job as a leader for their success. And of course, they have to also meet your expectations. So and this is what I tell anybody I encounter, is when you get hired, you ask the person hiring you, what is your leadership philosophy? Mine is servant leadership. My job is to be your servant, to clear your pathway. But that doesn't mean that I'm your bitch. I'm going to have expectations, tough expectations, right? Servant leadership with tough expectations. That's my leadership philosophy. It's all about the people. Like I said, connect before you correct. It's not the oxygenator or the heart-lung machine.
Teaching how to do it is been a challenge for business schools in general. Now, you ran Crotonville as a way to get your executives trained and learn. How did you do that?
Well, we spent just enormous amounts of time on the evaluation process. We didn't spend very much time on discounted rates of return because they're not worth anything anyway. You guys don't know that. I mean, you put the residual value in, change the whole equation.
A little bit about mergers and
You want
acquisitions you're talking
15%?
about.
That's one number. If you want a higher number, just change the residual value. That's the game. So we didn't teach numbers. We taught how to evaluate people, how to deal with people who needed improvement. How many people spend time evaluating how to bring people along, what they're good at and what their shortfalls are. And that's a huge, your job will not be doing much of the stuff you've learned here. Your job will be dealing with people, for the most part, evaluating them, building great teams, exciting them, giving them the vision, and showing them how to take the hill. That really is your job. And your job won't be being the smartest person in town. It'll be rallying smart people to do the job.
So I was talking about performance management, and I found it lacking in most organizations, especially in healthcare, because sometimes you get your raise even before your eval is done. It's like, no, you don't do that. You don't do that. You couple your eval to your raise. That's how you do it, because it's a reward for your hard work, right? And eval is not once a year. It's all the time. It's your job to evaluate your team all the time. When they need coaching, coach them. So Jack talks about 20, 70, 10, which is 20% of your staff are always going to be high performers. They're going to pump their cases. They're going to go to conferences. They're going to publish papers. There's 70% who are going to come in, do their job, go home. They're workhorses. You tell them to take call, they'll take call. You tell them to do a second case, they'll do a second case. They're important too. And there's the bottom 10%. The bottom 10% who are lacking the skills that they require. So what is your job as a leader for those 20, 70, 10 people? Well, it's your job to coach and mentor those 10% on the bottom so they can come up to the 70%. Your job as a leader to reward the top 20%. And don't just reward them on the sly. Make it public. Adrian gave a solid paper at the academy. He's going to get a $5,000 bonus, and make sure everybody knows that. Why? Because you want the people in the 70% to want to go into the 20%. That's what differentiation is. So let's hear Jack talking about it at Arthur Page Society.
Could you give a little bit of advice to the CCOs in the room about talent development and who to keep and who to face the music?
Yeah, well, I happen to think that in a corporation, in any corporation of any size, you've got to have a set of, first, a mission, which is critical to the whole game. Where you're going. People have to have purpose. A mission and purpose are critical. Then you have to have, how are we going to get there? And that's a set of behaviors. call it values, but behaviors. Well, these behaviors, they can be speed, they can be sharing ideas, they can be growing people. You pick 5 or 6 that you need to drive that. And when you do that, you evaluate people on one axis on behaviors and one axis on numbers. And people that criticize and they love to do it, my differentiation 20-70-10, they say, how can you have that? It'll kill teamwork. Not if teamwork's a value. You can't be in the top 20, no matter what your numbers are, if you're a hot horse's ass that doesn't have teamwork.
He likes that word.
You can't do it. It doesn't work. You're in the bottom. So you got to have the values and the numbers. Mm-hmm. So the 4 types are the manager that has the numbers and has all the values the company wants, onward and upward. And then you have the person that doesn't have the performance and doesn't behave the way you want. That's just as easy. Say goodbye. And then you got the third one who has the values, the behaviors you want, the styles you want, but is having trouble with the results. Might be a family problem, might be something else. To get that person who's buying into the system, who wants to do it, you got to give them a second, third chance sometimes to get in the right job with the right atmosphere. But the one that kills every organization is the jerk who delivers the numbers without the behaviors. On it.
It's very self-explanatory, but this is all about people management. And then your job as a leader is to have a vision. Having a vision of where you're going to be, where your team's going to be in a year, 5 years, 6 months.
One reason I think have all different kinds of styles and backgrounds and everything. They got to believe you can see over the next hill and be willing to follow you, even though they can't see it. Yeah, and different people get different ways. I mean, it's really interesting how but unless the troops say you can see over the next hill, they're not going to go over that hill with you if they can.
That's terrific. Yeah. That piece, that's a jewel.
Yeah, if you've met the Oracle of Omaha, he's a very down-to-earth gentleman. The next video is, Dr. Toby Cosgrove from Cleveland Clinic talking about how it's all about the patient.
Journey started with a major embarrassment for me. Many people have heard me tell this story before, but it embarrasses me every time I tell it. And I was at Harvard Business School, and a lady asked me a question. She said, Dr. Cosgrove, we understand that my father has mitral valve prolapse, and we know that you've done more of these operations than anybody in the United States. But Dr. Cosgrove, we decided not to come to you because we heard you don't have empathy. Dr. Cosgrove, do you teach empathy? I can't remember anything I said after that. And then about 10 days later, I'm in Saudi Arabia, and the king of Saudi Arabia and the Crown Prince are there, and they're dedicating a new hospital, and the president of the hospital says, this hospital is dedicated to the body and the spirit and the soul of the patient. And I kind of went, yeah. And I looked over, and the king of Saudi Arabia and the Crown Prince were both weeping. So I said, whoa, Toby, you missed something. And then I looked at my career, which started out at Boston Children's Hospital, where in one day we lost 5 kids in cardiac surgery. And then it went on to the rest of my residency, where the mortality rate was approaching double digits. And then finally now mortality rate was 1% or less. And I spent all my time trying to perfect this. And I essentially become a technician, because I know in surgical parlance, cut well, sew well, do well. And so all the complications essentially happen in the operating room. So as a result of this, I said, we've got to do something different. Patients no longer going to give you a hug simply because they survive. They expect to survive, and they want to have a relationship with you. And they can't define a great experience on on the basis of whether you're a great cardiac surgeon or not, or you're a great diagnostician. And so they're going to define it on the basis of how we look after. We've decided to evaluate people since we were in the 5 years old in the sandbox. And so that's when I said we've got to change the organization. I thought the best way to do it was to create what we call the Chief Experience Officer and give it C-level importance, and the rest, I guess, is history.
So let's not forget why we are at our jobs. We're there for the patient. So never let ego or any other thing intervene between the quality and safety of that patient, because that's what you're there for. Don't forget, healthcare is about compassion. I'm going to skip this slide. And did I already show dignity? I didn't. I'll quickly show what Jack talks about dignity.
As far as dignity is concerned, the dignity is you never embarrass people. You never publicly reprimand. You never put people down in groups of people. And you have a trust that's built with them. For example, when you let somebody go, they know you'll do it fairly. That's what dignity is. Dignity is all about treating the individual the way you'd like to be treated and never forgetting it, never losing your cool. Don't you ever jump up at a meeting and yell at somebody in front of 5 peers that are in the room. You can't do that. But you can bring them down the hall the next day and have a chat with them, or that night. That's what dignity is all about. Don't ever humiliate anybody on the team, because you'll lose not that person, but you'll lose all the others.
He says that's so much better than me. So this is Omar Ishrak, who used to be CEO of Medtronic, talking about creating value in healthcare.
To some tension between trying to make a difference, to use your skills to make a difference in overtime healthcare.
And short term.
As opposed to making money.
I have a fundamental belief that that value, that if you create value of some sort, that has money associated with it. And if you don't create value, then the money is probably not real. It may seem real, but it's not sustainable. So if the goal is in the end to create value, then the money will come. So the real question that one struggles with is not so much whether I doubted whether you could make money with it or not. The real question is, could you make it in the short term? Because sometimes these things take time. And how do you balance short-term priorities with long-term priorities is a challenge that one always has to go through. And I think that's part of business. And, you know, as you do bigger and bigger businesses, you sort of learn more techniques how to do that, but that is essential. You cannot be either only a short-term, if you're running a big business with a goal to be enduring, and one that always survives, you've got to always look at both short-term and long-term. Just long-term alone is not enough. You've got investors. You've got who want results. And at the same time, if you don't think of long-term, you can get disrupted. So you've got to do both.
So this is my argument when, you know, we were talking about return on investment, because whenever you try to optimize blood management, you want to buy hardware, it's expensive. And so I presented my ROI for 1, 2, and 5 years to my corporate board and showed them how, even though you're spending dollars up front, you're going to make money in 2 years. You're going to get a return on investment.
Did you ever run in?
So here's my last slide. And this was cited in the World Economic Forum 10 most important skills of 2023. And like I said in the beginning of my talk, this is not just about leaders, but it's about everybody. To be a good leader, you're going to be a good follower. And a good follower can also be a good leader. And we talked about all these 10 skills. You can just add safety to the quality control in the end. But this is what we talked about in our talk today. I apologize for the AV glitches. Hopefully I wasn't glitchy. Thanks for listening to me.